Welcome back to another episode of Relationships Uncomplicated podcast, episode 74. I'm Edie Chironi, and today I share with you the first part of an interview I had with Terry Real about his new book, Us Getting Past You and Me to Build a More Loving Relationship. If you've listened to my podcast before, you know I usually don't bring in guests. But when this opportunity to interview Terry presented itself, I immediately jumped on it. I was thrilled that my listeners will have the opportunity to learn from one of the best couples therapists out there. I feel extremely honored because Terry has been someone who's been impacting my work for years. I was introduced to his work years ago at a workshop he gave with Esther Perel about couples therapy. What he taught us in this workshop was nothing like I learned before. His understanding of relationships and people is really one of a kind. Since then, I've been listening to his lectures, reading his books, and learning more about his couples therapy method. I am beyond excited that he chose to be on this show and teach us about the us in our relationship. Let me tell you a little bit about Terry. Terry Real is an internationally recognized family therapist, speaker, author, and the founder of the Relational Life Institute. He wrote the book about male depression. He is the marriage counselor Esther Perel turns to, and Bruce Springsteen and Bradley Cooper are amongst his clients and fans. In his newest book, Us Getting Past You and Me to Build a More Loving Relationship, Terry reveals how individualism and patriarchy poison our most intimate relationships. So, I invited him here to discuss and share more about this with us. Guys, you are in for a treat. This is an important interview for anyone who's ever been in a relationship. You'll learn so much from this interview. It is chock full of such good information that I decided to cut it into two parts. So here is part one. This episode is sponsored by my infidelity recovery and healing program, It's Okay to Stay. If you're struggling in the aftermath of infidelity but want to stay together, you can rebuild trust and heal through genuine expert help from me and my team personally. I started It's Okay to Stay after seeing couples therapy and self-help options often lacked essential components to help couples save their relationship after infidelity. It's Okay to Stay is a complete 8-week coaching program that involves an online roadmap course and one-on-one work with an affair recovery specialist. So if you have faith in your relationship and you want to stay together and heal, let's talk. I'm offering a 45-minute free consultation for couples who want to save their relationship and need expert help. If that's you, just go online to edithchironi.com/45 and pick a time for a video call that both you and your partner can commit to. I'll hop on. We're first going to start with understanding your struggle, and then we're going to walk through It's Okay to Stay to see if the program is right for you. Look, so many couples try therapy and self-help methods only to be put at odds with each other. But that doesn't have to be you. With expert help, It's Okay to Stay will give you the clarity that you need to understand each other, to heal, and to find a path forward past infidelity. So again, all you have to do to book your free consultation is to go to edithchironi.com/45. That's idithcharoni.com/45. I'll be honored to stand alongside with you on this journey. Terry, it's such an honor to have you on my show, and I'm very thankful that my listeners will get to learn directly from you. So welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Edith. It's beautiful to be here. I appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. So I guess my first question to you is, you are a therapist, a writer, a speaker, and a teacher, for therapists. you meet people in different capacities as your therapy clients and or your students, or as your readers. What is your reason behind choosing these specific avenues to connect with people? And is there a favorite one?
Wow. That's a great question. Um, Look, I'll start with a poem.
Mm,
This is from Shelley. Mighty poets, mighty poets are cradled forth, raised up in, raised in their families, and cradled forth, brought forth from the cradle. Mighty poets are cradled forth in wrong. They learn in suffering
mm,
what they teach in song. Mighty poets are cradled forth in wrong. They learn in suffering what they teach in song. I started being a family therapist at about the age 4, trying to desperately regulate my out of control, depressed, angry, violent father. Um, I was a writer ever since I was a little boy.
mm.
My dad was the long suffering artist, he was a sculptor, and I was the writer. And I spent 4 years in a doctoral program in literature, left it, came to Boston, drove a cab, wrote a novel. One of my great humanitarian acts was never publishing that novel. It was not very good. Uh, and after getting shot at a couple of times, I left being a cabbie and got a job as a mental health worker in a loony bin. And when I sat down in my first role play as a therapist in training, I knew what to do better than I knew in 4 years in comparative literature. I knew just what to do. And I emerged from that with the conviction I was born to be a therapist. And I stopped writing. I didn't write for 25 years. I had to get into therapy to give up being a writer because all through my childhood, I felt if I didn't write the story of what I survived, that it would have no meaning. It would just
Mhm.
be, it would live and die with me. And my first book, I don't want to talk about it, is largely autobiographical. And so I gave up writing, and the great feminist family therapist, one of my terrific mentors of my life, Olga Silverstein of the Ackerman Family Institute, um, spoke to me one day and said, I'm going to change your life. I'm writing a book on mothers and sons. My agent wants someone to write a book about men and depression. And she's got all these famous therapists lined up. But I said, there's this kid in Boston. I was, I think, probably 40 at the time, but there's this kid in Boston, and he's your guy. And I said, Olga, I'm a family therapist. I don't believe in discrete disease entities like depression. Why would I ever write a book about men and depression? This is a true story. Olga said to me, well, they're giving me $300,000. I said, I'll be right over. And on the plane down to speak to the agent, I was like, oh man, what am I doing? I don't think of depression like biological or individual. I think of depression as a relational disease. Men are depressed because our socialization knocks us out of being connected and related. And then the light bulb went off, and a voice said to me, okay, write about that.
Yes.
And I did. I
And thank
scribbled.
you for writing about that. That was so helpful when I read this book. You know, many times therapists are women, and in couples therapy, there are two women in the room and one man, usually, if you're seeing a heterosexual couple. And sometimes I feel that men really need to be understood not only from our point of view. So, yeah, thank you for writing this book. This was enlightening and so helpful for me as a therapist.
Well, the essence of the book is that If you read Carol Gilligan, my dear pal and colleague, or Esther, or any of the women feminist writers, the wound to women traditionally is a wound to their power. Women are disempowered. They lose their voice at the edge of adolescence. Boys, the wound is much earlier, 3, 4, 5 years old. It's almost pre-verbal. And the wound is not disempowerment. Boys are falsely empowered. The wound is disconnection. We, quote, turn boys into men by disconnecting them from their vulnerabilities, their hearts, their desires, and from others. And what I have been working on for 40 years is that the cure for disconnection is reconnection to ourselves and to those around us who we love. And so I started seeing men in their relationships because I thought that restoring relationality was the cure. And that led me to my couples work and my gender work, which is what I've been involved in ever since. I love to write. I'm very proud of my writing. I think my writing is beautiful.
Yes, it is. I agree.
Yeah, thank you. I work hard at it. And I love to teach. I love all the modalities. But I think probably my favorite way of teaching is what we call the couples experiential. I do about 4 a year. It's 2 days, 5 couples live, and up to 1,000 mental health observers in the background. And I work with couple number 1, and I do a one-shot consultation. The rest of the couples give them feedback. Then I'm on to couple number 2, 3, 4, 5. And I debrief with the therapist at lunch and at the end of the day. So it's 5 live ammo interviews. Wow. And they're all relational life therapy, and they're all different. And that's, I think, of them all, my most favorite way of teaching right now.
Okay. Okay. So, I want to talk a little bit about your new book, because when I started reading your new book, Us, may I call it Us in short?
Please.
So when I started reading it, like right at the beginning, I felt a sense of gratitude more than anything else. Gratitude towards you. And basically in my mind, I kind of said, Terry, thank you for saying this. Thank you for noticing and making sense of our human experience. And then I also thought, oh my God, everyone should read this book. So, yeah. So can you start by telling us a little bit about the book, what the book is about and who is it for?
Well, it's for the general public as well as therapists. All my books are for both. They're for people who want to help people, and they're also for what one of my clients called normal people, therapists and normal people.
Because we are not normal, yeah.
At least that therapists are people who need to be in therapy 40 hours a week. That's why we're. Anyway, it's for the general public, and it's a critique of the toxic culture of individualism and what individualism does to our relationships. And if I may, it starts off with our biology. I talk about, one of the things I say, Edith, is when I'm sitting with a couple, the first question that comes to my mind is not what are your stressors, money, the kids, pandemic. Good couples handle stress. And it's not even the choreography between you. The more she pursues, the more he distances, the more he distances, the more she pursues. Very important. Not the first question. The first question I have is this one. Which part of you am I speaking to? Am I speaking to the prefrontal cortex, the most mature part of the brain that develops last in us, that can be thoughtful, present-based, here and now, deliberate, compassionate, intentional? Or am I speaking to some subcortical, more primitive part of the brain, which gets triggered through trauma? What we know neurobiologically is the autonomic nervous system scans the body 4 times a second Am I safe? Am I safe? Am I safe? Am I safe?
Mm.
And if the answer is yes, I'm reasonably safe, you can stay in that prefrontal cortex, what I call the wise adult part of us.
Mm-hmm.
But if the answer in our body is no, I'm in danger, boom, fight or flight, we get our limbic system gets triggered. We're flooded with a bunch of hormones and chemicals ready to take off or hit somebody. And what happens is that literally, neurologically, we lose the whole. We lose the appreciation of the context. And it stops being us, we're a team, and it starts being you and me as win-lose adversaries. And that's a shift that goes on in our neurologies. It's got nothing to do with reality. It has to do with how we experience ourselves. When you're in you and me win-lose, you're screwed. You're done. You will never negotiate anything. You'll never resolve anything. You'll never settle the fight. Nothing good can happen when you're in that adversarial part of you. And so a lot of the work that I do with couples and that I teach in the book is how when you're in the heat of the moment, to what I call remember love, to remember that the person you're speaking to is someone you care about. They're not the enemy. And the reason why you're speaking is to make things better. Now, if you're centered in that adult place in you, then go ahead and negotiate or fight or do what you need to do with your partner. But if you're not in that place, if you're in a triggered, immature place, you will be taken over by a less mature agenda, being right, controlling your partner, unbridled self-expression, retaliation, or withdrawal. None of those will ever get you more of what you want. So the first skill is getting centered into the part of you that will use skills to begin with. We give workshops all over the country, and my favorite slide in the workshop is this one. Other workshops teach you skills. We deal with the part of you that won't use them.
uh, so what do you do when this part is activated? Because it feels like this part, I think you call it the adaptive child, right?
Correct.
This part is activated, it's uninvited, and the other side of you, the more wise part of you, is just not available. So what do you do?
Take a break.
Mm-hmm.
Take a break. Take a break while you're standing there, if you're good at it, and let the triggered feelings wash over you. Don't try and control them. Just let them wash, and then come out the other side and do what I call relational mindfulness. It's a practice, just like meditation is a practice. And relational mindfulness is, let me remember the whole. Let me remember the context. Let me remember that this person is not my. The whole book is about teaching you how to think relationally, how to remember. See, the essence of patriarchy and individualism is the delusion that we are not in nature, that we stand apart from nature. That means I'm an individual, and that I stand above nature, controlling it, whether the nature I think I should control is my wife and kids, or someone at work, or a patient that I'm seeing, or my body, I've got to lose this weight, or my mind, I've got to stop being so negative. The power and control model comes out of the fear-driven part of our own bodies. And when you take a breath, you know that, you wake up to it, and you reach for a different part of you. And the first time you do that, you'll be very weak at it. You'll be run over by your automatic response. But by the 400th time you've done that, oh my God, things can settle down. I call this second consciousness. Your first consciousness is a knee-jerk response. that comes directly out of your adaptation of childhood. The second consciousness is like, let me take a breath, or take a walk around the block, or take 20 minutes, however long, and let me get recentered. Remember that I'm in this relationship. I'm not above it. And now from this place, let me see if there's something I can I give you an illustration?
Oh, please. Yes.
Okay. So this is a story I've told for a number of decades. When my kids are in their 30s now, when they were little, my wife Belinda is a full-time private practice. She's a great family therapist, and she would handle two kids. I'd be on the road, and I'd come home, say, after 5 days on the road, and Belinda would be spent. Now, Belinda comes from a violent family, as do I, and our knee-jerk first consciousness adaptive child are both fighters. So I would come home and Belinda would be, I can't believe you left me here with these two kids for 5 days, blah, 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 blah. And I would have what I call whoosh, WHOOSH. Whoosh comes up, the automatic response that comes up from the feet. That's triggering. And my whoosh is to fight. I'd want to bop her in the nose. But I like to say, being a feminist and an educated man, I would relegate myself to verbal abuse. I can't believe you're such a witch telling me. I just spent 5 days telling other people how to love each other, and I have to come home to this BS from you. That would be me triggered on a bad day.
Yes.
As I started doing this practice, on a good day, I would come home. Belinda would meet me with that anger. I would feel the whoosh of reciprocal anger, and I would take a breath, a blessed breath. My friend, the German mystic who lives in Israel now, Thomas Ubel, has a saying, urgency is our enemy and breath is our friend. And so we do a lot of breathing in relational life work. I breathe myself down from that rage. I remember that Belinda wasn't my enemy, that she was the woman I loved. I would be compassionate to her experience, put myself aside. Okay, I'm sorry. I know I left you here with the kids. You put your feet up here. Let me give you a glass of wine. I'll put the kids to bed and let's talk. But that triggered part of me was no more capable of such a mature response than flying to the moon. The first skill is getting seated in the part of me that can be skilled.
Right.
And that's the skill that I focus on.
Yes. And I think that it's almost not our fault that we would go that route, that we don't have any skills whatsoever to stop for a second and see, how can we reach, the other parts of us that are more loving and wise and calm. And I think it's not only because of our, how we were brought up, probably a big part of it, but also our culture is very encouraging us to only trust ourselves. There's a lot of self-care and self this and self that, and you can do everything and it's only about you, and you can find what is it? Me, exactly. And and I think maybe it's stronger here in the US than, because I come from a different culture and I do see the difference. Although probably now I come from Israel, so probably now it's a little more like it's here. But when I grew up, it wasn't like that. And so I see that a lot of my clients not only find it difficult to find that part in themselves, but it's sometimes it takes a lot for me to explain that they need to do that, right? That it's not just me, it's not just in you. And I think so when I read your book, I was like, oh yes, that's the us that you're talking about.
Well, I try and give both a map and a set of skills. And once you have the map, the skills change. For example, look, this is how I explain it. Our relationships are our biosphere. In the Bible, God gives Adam dominion. That's the word, dominion over all the things that creep and crawl and fly and swim on the earth. bad idea. We're not in domain.
That's where it starts.
We're not above our relationship, and we can't control our relationship. Have the ecological humility of understanding that you're in the relationship. We're not above this atmosphere called Earth. We're breathing it. And you can choose to pollute your relational biosphere by having a temper tantrum over here, but you're going to breathe in that pollution in your partner's distance or coldness over here. You're in it. You're not above it. And once we deconstruct that individualism and patriarchal delusion that you're not in nature, you're above it, and you realize that you're in it, everything changed. For example, the relational answer to the question, who's right and who's wrong, is who cares? It doesn't matter. When you think like a team, what matters is how are you and I going to make this work in a way that's going to work for us? That's what matters. If from a relational perspective, if one partner wins and the other one loses, you both lose. Right. And that's not some pie in the sky idealism. That's real politics, baby. The loser will make the winner pay for it. I guarantee it. You're connected. And once you realize the connection, that you're in a context called your relationship, it's in your interest to make that relationship work, everything changes. It's no longer about I win, you lose. It's no longer about a zero-sum game. It's all about abundance and win-win, and how are we going to work together in a way that's going to work for example, the difference between saying, I need more sex. I have needs in this relationship and they're not being met. That's an individual talking. Versus, hey, honey, we both deserve a good sex life and it's really been off the table. What do we need to do to resurrect this so that we can both have that? What a difference. Two ways of saying the same thing, but what a difference in the result you're going to get.
Right, because one is so much more relational.
That's exactly right.
Right. Yeah. I have a question about, I guess my work is mostly with couples in the aftermath of infidelity. And so probably most of my listeners are somewhere there. And can you talk a little bit about how you take this idea, model, and, suggest that to a couple who is just, one of them just found out that there has been infidelity. And they are they are in crisis in that moment.
Yeah. They've been hit over the head with a baseball bat.
Yes.
And the trauma of infidelity is unspeakable. What an incredible wound. And of course, as our mutual friend Esther Perel has pointed out, back in the day, it was a little lipstick on the collar. Nowadays, it's 400 emails about her creamy thighs and, slamming against the wall and doing each other. And you get a front row seat to every graphic detail. It's just horrible to live through.
Right.
When it comes to infidelity, the first thing I wanted to do is respect the trauma of the infidelity. It really is a trauma. So the first question, are you eating? Are you sleeping? Do you need a little antidepressant in the short run to help you not be so distraught? Do you need some EMDR to get those awful images out of your head?
Intrusive thoughts.
Yeah, so the first order of business is acute damage control. Then I fade back and I ask myself, why did this happen? And it is true that here and there are what I call existential affairs. There's no reason why it happened. We're weak, we're selfish. It was a one-night stand. Somebody got drunk, they were on the road, whatever. But more often than not, there are reasons. And I tend to think of two. My first sort of triage with infidelity is this primarily about the immature narcissism of the faithless partner? Did they have an affair or infidelity because basically they were selfish and thoughtless and I deserve, they were entitled?
Mhm.
Or is this primarily an infidelity that's occurring in a marriage that really needs to be shaken up? A marriage that's stultifying or dead or highly conflictual, or a marriage that needs.
So is it about the relationship or is it about the partner that was unfaithful?
Yeah. Because you see,
Yeah.
I say to people, you don't ask people why they have an affair. It's obvious why you would have an affair. It's exciting, it's sexually gratifying, it's fun. Uh, People are kind to each other when they have
Mhm.
affairs in ways that
Mhm.
they're probably less kind in their living room. Um, and you don't ask somebody why they have an affair. You ask somebody why they don't. Now,
Mm.
look, I am not. I'm in a monogamous relationship. Have been for years, and the reason why I say no is because I don't want to hurt my wife. I don't want to deal with my children looking at me, asking me why I screwed around on their mother. I don't want to mess with my sense of integrity, and I don't want to deal with the consequences to my reputation. Those are the biggies. When somebody has an affair, those reasons have been overridden.
Yeah.
And they're either overridden because they're not such big reasons for the person because they're selfish and they don't get all that, or the person has overridden the no because the relationship has gotten so threadbare that they don't have the instinct to protect it. What the
Mm.
hell? If I get caught, I get caught. The hell with it.
Yeah.
And so figuring out what's going on, the next step is fixing it. So if it's about the cheating partner's selfishness, it's about teaching them how to be relational. They've been too individualistic. And if it's about the relationship, then we restore the vitality of the relationship that's gone missing.
Mhm.
But both of these things are curable. Most couples do survive infidelity, but I'm not interested in survival. I want to use this crisis as an opening for transformation
Yes.
in each of the two partners and in the relationship itself. I don't want to restore you back to what you were. I want to move you toward the superb relationship that you're longing for.
Yes. And I think I can't remember the exact title that you have there, but it's almost like the delusion is over. Welcome to reality, something like that. Which I
Uh,
thought,
you've lost everything. Welcome to your real marriage.
yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.